Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is another episode in the series talking about my university experience, but definitely more focus on the medical course at St Andrews University. To make this video a little bit more structured, I'm going to separate it down into three different chunks. Firstly looking at the course structure, then looking at the teaching, finally looking at the medical societies and social aspects. If all goes to plan, I'll put timestamps in the description box below and you can jump to the relevant parts if you'd like. If you are a medical applicant, a medical school applicant, you may choose to use this structure when you're comparing medical schools or in an interview setting. Before I get onto the main bulk of this video, I just thought I'd give you a quick summary of how I felt overall. I feel like I really enjoyed it overall, and I do think that I've gained a lot more self-confidence if I was to compare myself to a pre-medical school fresher state. But I don't know how much of that is down to the medical course and how much may be due to my university experience or just generally just growing older as well. Of course, I had to adapt to a lot of different things as well, like working continuously and also getting used to almost a constant examination state, which is something that is at St Andrews. So I think I've had to adapt, and my work ethic has definitely improved as a result of that. Firstly, looking at the course structure. So the course at St Andrews is split up into preclinical and clinical. The whole thing is 6 years, but you have 3 years preclinical and 3 years of clinical years. If you've heard those terms before but don't know what they mean, I might mention them in my previous videos as well. Easiest way to differentiate between the two: preclinical is mostly learning by bookwork. Clinical years are learning by practically being in a hospital, so practical on the job kind of thing. Some medical schools do 2 years preclinical, whereas at St Andrews it's 3 years because you're doing your BSc in your 3rd year. So by the time you finish graduating, at the end of the 6 years, you have both your BSc and your medical degree as well. After your first 3 years at St Andrews, the last 3 years are done at a partner medical school, which can either be up in Scotland or down in England. If they're in Scotland, they're in Edinburgh, Glasgow, Dundee, Aberdeen. Have to make sure I got all of those. And if you go down to England, it will either be Manchester or Barts. There's also, I think I'm aware of, like a Cambridge route where like one student can go to Cambridge for their clinical years if they score like super highly throughout. Yada yada yada. I don't really know the ins and outs of that. Didn't look into that. If you're interested in that, you can always just search that up. We also have a Canadian route as well, where Canadian students come over and do their preclinical first 3 years at St Andrews, then move over to Edinburgh, and then do their final year back in Canada. So you have a chunk of students that are all Canadians as well, which is quite nice and not like any other medical school. In terms of the course structure itself, it is something they like to call a spiral curriculum, which means that concepts are introduced at an early stage, almost like a little bit like an information overload, but then reintroduced as you go through the years. So by the time you finish, you feel like you've gone over things several times, and I think that promotes learning to long-term store as opposed to short-term store. If you're a medical school applicant, it's worth looking at the different medical schools and the way they teach because they're not all the same. Now onto examinations. So examinations are conducted every 6 to 7 weeks. You have midterms and end of terms. Each semester, which they like to call it a term, is a completely different topic, and you therefore have exams right in the middle and then also right at the end. Those that are right in the middle are multiple choice examinations, and then those at the end you have one multiple choice paper and one short written answer paper. At the end of each academic year, you also have practical exams, which are OSCEs. Before I move over to the teaching section, I'm going to give my opinion on the course structure. Having 2 lots of 3, I think, really does help break it down into manageable chunks. 6 years does seem like a very long time, but 2 lots of 3, it just seems a lot more manageable, even though it's the same amount of time, really. I know it's also really sad to the thought that you're going to be moving away from your friends that you've had for the past 3 years because you're going over to different medical schools, but I guess that's what other people doing other courses have to do anyway. They move on after 3 years, 3 to 4 years. So it's not that bad. And if you try and take like a positive spin on it, it basically means that you end up expanding your network because you've got people that have gone to different medical schools. And by the time that you're a professional, that just works out to be a great thing if you ever need that. I'm also definitely one of those people that also likes to talk about like personal growth and all that kind of stuff. So I do think that moving on after 3 years, like picking up and starting afresh again, it teaches you to adapt to new environments. And I mean, it teaches resilience. It teaches all those kind of good positive traits. So if anything, I love that kind of thing. So yeah, it's good from my side anyway, in my opinion. Unlike other medical schools, St Andrews is quite small. So if you're talking about the first 3 years of undergraduate medicine, each year has around 150 students, and that can go up or down, obviously, depending on whatever happens that year. So if you think about it, 150, 3 years, and they've only just started their postgraduate or their graduate entry medicine courses within the last 2 years. So the amount of students actually in the medical school is really small. And that has its benefits and obviously its downsides, but I'll mention a little bit about that in the social aspect. But overall, I think it's quite nice. It's a little bit of a change to other medical schools. Now moving over to teaching. As I mentioned, these are the preclinical years, the bookwork years, and this is predominantly done through the use of lectures, which are then supplemented with small group tutorial sessions with between 8 to 10 students. These tutorial sessions can be going through clinical cases together, or even just kind of used as a supplement to ask questions outside of lectures. And also, one thing which actually is, I think, honed in by St Andrews is communication skills. So you've got these communication skill sessions where you'll have to go over the different techniques, perhaps, or going over the different formats and phrases works. And then we would have practical sessions where you would go in these rooms that had a camera in the corner of the room, so like a fly on the wall, with an actor, and have to perhaps like break bad news or encourage them to take up different healthy lifestyle measures or whatever. And then these simulated patients would go through a whole load of different emotions, just so you could get used to patients that might go through being quite angry or upset or whatever. And I think that is something that is very different to other medical schools. We were definitely put on our toes from day one in terms of communication skills and taught to basically enhance them really early on. We were also recorded when we had to review our practical skills as well, and after we kind of learned about one, we'd have to record ourselves performing it on another medical student and then review those and reflect on those and submit them as part of our portfolio. Another tool that was used to supplement our anatomy learning was dissections. We had small groups of students that were given a cadaver to work on throughout the year, and then when you learned a particular system, you dissected that particular system in the body as well, which I think worked really well, because as soon as you had learnt a particular section in anatomy in a lecture, 2 to 3 days later, you'd be in the dissection room dissecting that exact same part as well. Not all medical schools do dissections in the same way, so if you're a medical applicant, have a look at the course information online for all the different medical schools to get a bit more information about that. Just to give my opinion of all the teaching side, the lectures were all recorded, which is great for going over the information again if you feel like invest anything in the lecture, so you can go over it in your own time, or perhaps for the first time in your own home. Everyone has their own different lecture styles, and obviously I did have my favourite lecturers and those that I wasn't too keen on their styles, but that will vary from person to person. I thought the group tutorial sessions were a great way to get to know people, and in terms of communication skills, it was amazing to be able to have the opportunity to then watch yourself and almost become hyper aware of what you're doing in certain situations. It may be what you're verbally saying, it may be your body language. Some people tend to have like small kind of things they do, like tapping or whatever, and it's great that you can pick up on those. Session in a nice environment where everyone is really supportive. I do think that out of everything out of the course, that's one of the things that I'm very grateful for, and I know it's very different compared to other medical schools, and it's something I can use not only in my profession but also later on in life as well. The anatomy sessions
This is University of Plymouth, what I received last year. This is the offer letter that I received for Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery after my interview. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. This video is about all the interview tips and all the things that I came across in my last Plymouth medical interview. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Best of luck for everyone. And this is my first video in 2024, and I hope you guys have a wonderful year this year. All your dreams may come true. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Ravi.
I get asked this question a lot. Why did I actually choose to come to Plymouth? And a lot of people are like, so why didn't you just stay in London? Why did you go to London University? When I say that was literally the miracle, that was God opening. That's why I meant like I didn't choose Plymouth, God chose Plymouth, because God literally set everything up so that I would be able to end up here. I would be in my university accommodation, studying medicine, telling you this testimony. Because just before that, there was literally no medical school, none whatsoever that I qualified for. Hi guys, Master Med here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. As for today's video, I just wanted to do like a sit down chit chat. So whilst I've done that, and the last one was a bit emotional, wasn't it? But yeah, I just wanted to do a sit down chit chat with you. I'm literally in my dressing gown. So I just wanted to talk to you guys about like why I get asked this question a lot. Why did I actually choose to come to Plymouth? Because obviously I'm crowdfunding and I don't really have like the funds to like finish this thing yet. And a lot of people are like, so why did you just stay in London? Why did you go to London University? And I was like, listen, if I could, I would have. Like, Plymouth was not, I didn't choose to come to Plymouth. God chose Plymouth for me. And I had no choice in the matter. And I'll explain in this video why I didn't have a choice. Why, not I didn't have a choice, but I didn't have much of an option in terms of like where I was going to end up. And why, do you know what? I feel like this was probably the best place for me to end up in. I'm going to talk about the university itself, of course. Also like different ways in which like different universities and how they like set their entry requirements for medicine. So if you are interested in that, keep watching because we're going to talk a lot about that and why I ended up coming to Plymouth basically. But before I do, I just wanted to do like talk about a few things that has gone on over the past 2 weeks and I've just kind of like missed it and I didn't really celebrate a lot. So we have over 100 subscribers on this YouTube channel, which is fantastic. Welcome, thank you for joining the family, thank you for subscribing. And our move in day vlog has... Good morning. It is a Monday morning. It is the beginning of a new week and we're gonna... And then in the evening time I'm gonna do some studying. So I've printed Priscilla and I went to just print out some stuff, you know, just to consolidate.
Hi, my name is Juliana. I am originally from Belarus, but I've lived in the UK for quite a few years now. Working with Crimson on getting to UCL, I think the two main parts they helped was the application strategy, so combining my personal statement and what scores I got in the admission test, and my grades and deciding which unis I have the best chance of getting into. So I was working with my strategist Abby, who was helping me figuring out where to apply so that I get into somewhere essentially, even though we do usually have a first choice. The goal is to get into some medical school because at the end of the day, you end up being a doctor regardless of where you go. And the second part was a bit more detailed, so that was working on extracurriculars. So which parts can I improve a little bit? So this is when we did the online exhibition because that was extracurriculars. That was like reflecting on books and different webinars that I've watched. So I got a lot of resources from that. UCAT and BMAT admission testing guidance. So for both, I think it's a lot of just like practice, but it was nice having the opportunity to come to someone and be like, oh, I don't know how this question works. Like, would you be able to explain this to me? Probably something that was the most useful was the interview practice. So I think I got like 20 hours of interview practicing, and I genuinely think that it made my application so much stronger because it was the ability of one-to-one, 20 hours just speaking and them answering me questions, all sorts of types of questions that I might not even have thought about. So then when I got to the interview, there was nothing they could ask me that I wouldn't have already expected an answer before. So I think the expertise of the team at Crimson that I was working with is something that actually really surprised me from the very beginning because they all knew so much in their respective fields. One of the examples would be my strategist Abby, who knew the very specifics of the different universities, and I didn't realize how different they were. So when we were trying to figure out which universities to apply to, she was so on it with saying like, yeah, this university doesn't look at this specific section of this admission test, but then they do really want you to showcase this specific quality of interviews. And I still don't know where she got this information from and how she knows all of this, but it made such a big difference with deciding where to apply because I maximized my chances and improved them so much. So that was one of the examples. All of the tutors for UCAT and BMAT and interviews were all medical students or doctors, so they all have gone through the process before. They all knew what to ask. They knew exactly what like the medical admission team in universities wanted to hear. So it wasn't just trying and hoping that at some point I will say something right. It was knowing exactly what to say and when and how, which really, really helped me. So I think one of my biggest pieces of advice with applying to any UK university, stay strategic and rational, because I think I don't just speak for myself when I say that a lot of people have this vision from childhood of going to the specific university, whether that's because like, I don't know, that's where their grandma went, or they've been once when they were 10 and they like the campus, and so they just have this emotional attachment to a specific university, and they end up working towards it and applying to it without really looking into what the application process is looking at, or what the course is actually like, or what the campus is like. a lot of my friends have ended up in places where they don't like the course because they have to write like 3 essays a week, or they don't like the campus because it has like 1,000 people and that's it because the campus is the city. And so I think being really strategic and rational with actually 3 essays a week, or they don't like the campus because it has like 1,000 people and that's it because the campus is the city. And so I think being really strategic and rational with actually looking into like what are the requirements for the course, what does it entail, what is the campus like, speaking to alumni and people studying there at the moment, and trying to use logic over emotion. I think that's really useful just so that you don't end up studying somewhere for 3 years where you don't enjoy it, or like dropping out and reapplying and going through everything again. Yeah, I mean, finally, I really do want to say a massive thank you to the whole team that helped me, because even though I'm not really in touch with them anymore, all of them did help me so much. And because I was working with them over the course of a whole year, sharing with them like my biggest worries, but also them guiding me through one of the most difficult periods of my life, I'm so grateful because.
As some of you may know, my name's Ishan and I'm a first year medical student at UCL. And in this video, I want to talk about how I think I got in and my application timeline. Now, before I start, I just want to quickly mention if there's a particular part of my application that you're interested in, feel free to skip ahead using the timestamps below. But without further ado, I'm going to get straight into the timeline, starting with my extracurriculars. So I think everyone's extracurriculars, mine included, start well before you even decide to do medicine, which is just doing the activities that you would be doing anyway. So for example, I played badminton and coached badminton, I was volunteering at charity, I was doing these things anyway, and this is just something you have to be able to talk about in your interviews or in your personal statement in a way that is relevant to medicine. So for example, because I play badminton, I could say this helps me have a nice work-life balance, or if I coach badminton, I could say this helps me build a rapport with the kids that come to play. So the point I'm trying to make here is everything you do adds to your character and adds to the interesting person and unique person that you are, and that's what we're trying to show to the interviewers, to the university itself, and I think that's what's really important for UCL as well, because you want to show that you're an all-rounded person, not someone who's only interested in medicine and academics. Okay, next thing, supercurriculars. Now, what exactly are supercurriculars? So supercurriculars are any extra work that you're doing that is related to the degree. So extracurriculars are stuff that you just do for fun outside. Supercurriculars will be more honed in and specific to medicine itself. So for example, any work experience, an essay you're writing, an article you read, a podcast you've listened to, anything like that counts as supercurricular. So what did I do for my supercurriculars? Now, I did a bunch of stuff and I wrote about most of it in my personal statement, but some of the ones that were really highlights to me were Surgeons at the Edge of Life, which is a brilliant documentary on BBC iPlayer. So like, please go watch it if you're interested in medicine, surgery, anything like that. So I talked about that and how the surgeon like expertly removes this like cavernoma from a patient's spinal cord. I found that really, really fascinating, and stuff like that shows that I'm interested in medicine and I'm able to talk about it. And then I also linked that in with a book I read, which was Complications by Atul Gawande, which is a book about how like surgery and medicine can go wrong. So I was able to discuss that quite nicely, and those things linked together. Then the next thing I talked about was this online course on chemotherapy I did, which was on FutureLearn, which is a great website to find online courses. And then I linked this in with the EPQ that I did on lung cancer and chemotherapy as a treatment for lung cancer. I also found an essay about like the history of. You all have something similar, and these decide the predicted grades that go to your university. So they're important exams, you need to smash them, and the best way to do that, in my opinion, was doing practice papers, past questions, and reading the mark schemes and trying to learn the mark schemes. The more practice you do and the more you try and analyze these mark schemes, the better you're going to do. I'm going to make a video properly about like A-levels and stuff like that, so stay tuned for that, but honestly, just doing well in these predicted grade exams is important. So now once these exams were over, I had a little bit of school left, and then it was summer. So summer, I started my A-levels. Okay, so now for A-levels, it was just the final push. I had to do loads of past papers, practice questions, same thing as year 12 for year 13, but it's so much harder and so much longer because there's literally double the amount of content to do. Also, all of my offers were A-star AA, so I didn't have an insurance, so I had to make sure I got A-star AA. So I went into the exam like, I wanted to get 3 A-stars, and that was the aim, but I was like, in case I don't, I can still get A-star A and still get in. So just have the mindset of like, I want to do as well as I possibly can, because why would you not? But remember that your grade isn't going to be a triple A-star offer, so like, don't stress about it, because a lot of med applicants are like perfectionists, and we want to do really, really, really well, but don't worry about it too much. So that's it, that was my whole journey into UCL medicine. If you're interested in like my whole stats page and how I got in, what dates I got offers and stuff, I'll leave.
Hello everyone, it's a bit of a short video today, but I thought I'd just talk through my experience of the UCAT test day, as that might be coming up for some of you, and it might be helpful to know what I experienced, a few bits and pieces around that. So I hope this helps, and if you do like the video, please feel free to subscribe and whatever, do that stuff. But yeah, without further ado, let me get straight into talking about my experience. Alright, so the day arrived, it was 31st of August 2021, so almost a year ago, and first of all, the test was really tough, like 2 hours of ridiculous concentration, and you know that the test matters. It's scary, it's tough, I know, it's very difficult to concentrate for that long even. But I went straight in, saw the first verbal reasoning question, and just didn't know what to do. It was this huge passage on like some historical revolution or something. No idea what to do. So I just skipped past that, looking for kind of smaller text, smaller passages, and apparently for all 44 questions of the UCAT at that time for verbal reasoning, none of them were short passages. So I panicked for the first 5 minutes and then sort of just tried to battle through each question as it came. I probably skipped about 20 of the questions and sort of guessed something for them. The others I sort of tried to write some answer for, but genuinely after the verbal reasoning section, smoothly. From my understanding, if it doesn't run smoothly, if there's any problems, just put your hand up and they'll come help you out with whatever it might be. But overall, it seems to run quite smoothly for me. But yeah, so that was my general experience of the UCAT. Pretty standard, nothing too fancy, but maybe that gives you some idea of what to expect 15 minutes before the end. And you know, finished it, put my hand up, and waited for them to come and collect me out of the room. Once I was out of the room, loads of emotions. Now, I'll let you figure those emotions out for yourself, because it is quite exciting to kind of have finished an exam like that. But once I was done, I just waited. Again, the lady at the desk said she's going to print
I assume if you've looked at the title, clicked on the thumbnail, and wanted to video, to some extent, academic validation forms a part of your life. I was similar in year 12 and 13, where I made the biggest mission of my life, getting into the University of Oxford to study medicine. Now, all I want this video to be is a reflection of my journey into trying to get into Oxford, getting rejected, and how I feel about it now. And also, I've got a few points literally just written on this post-it note that I'm going to cover. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that this rejection from Oxford was my first rejection ever. I'd never been told no for anything else in my life before, and this hit like a truck. It was honestly so difficult to experience saying, you know what, you aren't good enough for this. That is exactly how it felt, and that's how it's going to feel for many of you if you have been rejected for something. It feels like it's a complete personal blow at you. Now, it is extremely hard to get over it, especially if it is your first, but the most important thing for me was that I had a brilliant support network. I had my teachers, I had my friends, especially I had my family, and through that, I was able to really process how I felt about getting rejected and also move on from it much easier. It will be difficult if you live alone, or if your first rejection is at some point in uni or later on in life. The earlier you hit the truck, the earlier you experience this pain, the easier it will be, because you'll get over it much quicker. One thing I'd really recommend actually is watching this video. It's by University of Oxford professor. It breaks down the feeling that you might be kind of experiencing if you've been rejected, and also how to get over it. It's very emotional but also practical at the same time. It merges the two together very nicely. It reminds you that you are not a reject. The piece of paper that says that you have not made it does not define you as a person of getting over it. Okay, now before I explain the process generally, I'll just take you quickly back to the time that I got rejected. So 11th of January 2022, got the rejection letter on the Tuesday. On the Wednesday, I had a break day where I was just sort of in bed wallowing. Thursday, I had a mock exam. Friday, I had my King's interview. Next Monday, I had my Birmingham interview. And I just had mocks throughout this whole time. So I was extremely snowed under and very busy with both like A-level mock school stuff and also other medical interviews that were going to get me into medical school like elsewhere in the country. So I didn't have a choice but to sort of get on with it. I assume if you've looked at and smash out my interview prep, smash out my mock exam prep, because otherwise I wasn't going to find a place at medical school or at university for September 2022, and I had to go back and think, wait, my main aim is to become a doctor, and for that I have to go to medical school. It doesn't matter where you go, you just have to go to medical school. So I had to like focus up on that and work hard to get those interviews and do well in those interviews. Okay, so now coming back to the process of getting over the rejection itself, I'd split it into two main steps. Step one, accepting the position that you're in, and then step two, making the most of the position that you're in. So to start off with, it was literally just
We're trying to understand how systems in the body go wrong. Firstly, we want to understand how they go right, and then secondly, how they can fail.
For me, medicine's like the ultimate mix of science and people skills. I don't think I'd like to do just pure science because there's not enough interaction with people, and I wouldn't like to do just pure humanities because there's not enough science.
A lot of people have, epiphanies and things like that where they realise that medicine is the course for them. I think for me, it was a decision that I spent a lot of time thinking about.
We have 2 years of science-based learning, and then we do an extra third year, and then we go into our clinical studies.
The first part is an unashamedly scientific exploration of the basis of medicine, and that distinction, I think, is becoming increasingly rare in medical schools in the UK, medical courses in the UK.
I really didn't know much about the different topics within medicine, but the first 3 years give you a chance to experience a bit of everything and then see what you like and then delve further into that.
My first year in medicine at Oxford was somewhat overwhelming, I would say, at the start.
When they realised about halfway through the first term that this is actually a big step up and the expectation is actually now at a different level entirely, not just for them but for everybody, you can see them sort of buckle down and say, right, I understand, I know what it is that's special about where I've come and what's going to be demanded of me.
There's so little time to learn all the stuff and to learn how you learn the stuff.
If you enjoy what you're doing, if you really do like medicine, then the workload doesn't become such a chore.
As a second year medic in Oxford, my typical week probably looks like about 15 to 20 hours of lectures and 3 tutes, and for each tute you'd be expected to write an essay or prepare a piece of work, so there's quite a lot of work involved.
Everybody has the opportunity to be in a primary research lab, to do a research project in a lab with groups that are cutting edge in the world in their fields, and I think that probably is one of the aspects that singles the course out as unique.
In the third year, it's a specialist year, so you get to pick your own research project in a field that you enjoy, and then secondly you get to pick an option as well that you enjoy. So for example, I really like the heart, so I picked a project that was related to that, and then I picked my option which was related to that as well.
One of the things I think that I'm particularly excited about is the number of research publications that are now permanently part of the primary research list, literature and biomedical sciences, that have an Oxford undergraduate medical student as one of the authors.
The teaching is fantastic. We're given a lot of support, both in college and at a university level, and we're often taught by experts in their fields, which does mean that they're very often very passionate about what they do, which is great, but they give you loads and loads of information, nowhere near the amount you could possibly learn.
There's a level of support that runs through the whole course, whether it's demonstrators in practicals, whether it's tutors in tutorials, that will make sure not only that all of the teaching that you need is available, but that the way you engage with it and the extent to which you understand is also being continuously reinforced. Collectively, the equipment that's available across the medical sciences division, across the university and in nearby institutions is pretty much unsurpassed anywhere.
The libraries in Oxford are fantastic, second to none, so you don't just have to work in your college library, you can work in the science library, in the Bodleian library, anywhere around Oxford, there's libraries everywhere.
What I would say is unique to Oxford is it's a kind of a facility. It's your college tutor who is really helpful. The advice that they give is priceless.
In terms of the overall delivery, of course, one of the uniquenesses is the tutorial system.
The tutorial system definitely took me a bit of time to settle into. I wasn't very vocal to begin with in tutes, and I just let a lot of the information wash over me and didn't really offer that much. And then we had a meeting with our tutor probably like halfway through the first term, and he kind of raised this as a point to me and said, you need to participate more, and I really made an effort.
One of the advantages of the Oxford system, of course, is that nobody who is feeling that they're lost in a particular subject can feel that way for very long without somebody knowing and being in a position to do something to help.
The fun part is that you get to go way beyond the lecture material. So you get to think about, why do things happen.
So much of school learning is this is what you need to learn, go away and learn it. And there is that in medicine too at Oxford, but there's also a lot of this is what we're teaching you. Do you think this is right? How can we tell that this is the truth? How do we know that what we're being told is correct?
A big thing about Oxford is to think outside the box, to be able to think on your feet. And these were things that I wasn't really taught during college, during my school life, so it's things that you pick up quickly during your tutorials here.
There are several occasions where we've actually rethought a current line of research based on conversations in tutorials.
Before I applied to Oxford, I heard a lot of myths about the university and then the course itself. So things like, the ridiculous interview questions that you're asked, the insane amount of workload that medics get, and lastly, I also kind of thought, I stereotyped the medics themselves as, perfect applicants, with ridiculously high BMAT grades and things like that. And it's sad because that nearly stopped me from applying to Oxford.
They were the first medicine interviews I'd ever had, so I was definitely very nervous, but I think that the support system that the colleges themselves put up, so all of the colleges employ some of their students to come and make it a relaxing, nice time, was really good, and in the end I ended up really enjoying my interview experience.
I love to feel, even in an interview, that I've posed a question that's actually really made somebody think, that for a fraction of a second they've forgotten that they're in an interview, they've just been asked something that gives them a new perspective and has made them think, and you can see it in their eyes when that happens, and then you think, yes, you'll do.
At each college you have one clinical interview and one science-based interview. So the clinical interviews are like the interviews that you get at other universities, so they're like ethically based, you have ethical dilemmas, they're just trying to tell if you're an empathetic and caring person.
The evidence comes from talking to students about their experiences, about how they bring their knowledge to bear to particular circumstances where they've been talking to somebody who is unwell in a hospital, worried about something, a relative of somebody in a care home, wherever their experiences have taken them.
But the science-based interviews are like nothing I've ever come across before.
In my interview, I got something completely wrong, but because I spelled it out to them why I thought that, they said, okay, in your thought process, this is where you went wrong, this is the correct information, and then I could work it out.
I think the advice that I would give for that science-based interview is that it's not what you know, but it's how you apply what you know.
I think probably the biggest misperception is that we're in some ways still not looking for the best, but looking for some arbitrary background experience or strange combination of requirements that really is just not the case.
And I had an email from my now tutor for admissions from my college, and the subject line was your application to St Edmund Hall, and I was like, oh my goodness.
My tutor called me up, and I thought this has got to be some kind of prank. At this stage, I don't have much idea of what kind of doctor I want to be, so what I want to specialise in. But I think that's the beauty of Oxford, is that it opens so many avenues for you.
We produce medical graduates who are equipped to start out the best that they can be, but to be equipped to continue.
Today I'm going to talk about everything I did to get into medical school, how I went from this to this. My name is Tria and I'm a junior doctor working in London. In 2022 I graduated from Oxford Medical School. I would say that getting into Oxford Medical School is one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do in my life. I found it even harder than getting through 6 years of medical school and graduating from Oxford as doctor in the end. I know that I come from a place of great privilege being able to say that, but today I'm going to tell you the story of how it happened. If you're thinking about studying medicine or you're thinking about applying to Oxford or Cambridge, then I hope this video is useful, and I'm going to tell you what to do.
and also what not to do from my personal experiences. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So I thought I'd start by talking about why I wanted to study medicine and also why I chose Oxford as a university. So I was always interested in science, especially the life sciences, and I've been seriously considering medicine since I was about 14 or 15. I knew I liked sciences, but I was always interested in the human aspect, which is why I was drawn to medicine. There was a time when I did think seriously about other sciences as a career, because I really enjoyed both biology, chemistry, and physics. However, I did get a chance to explore the more pure science route, and I found that wasn't really as interesting as I had hoped, and I didn't find it as exciting as medicine was. So when I was in sixth form, so I was about 16 years old, I got the chance to experience a taster course in university, which was called the Head Start course, which was a program that was offered through school. So in this program, I got to experience a week of life as a student in material science, which actually happened to be in Oxford University. And although I found that really interesting, and don't get me wrong, material science is really important, and bridges and things are cool if that's your thing, but I just found that it didn't have the immediate human interaction and human relevance that I was looking for, and I got that from medicine. I thought a lot about what medical school I wanted to go to, and I knew that I really wanted to go to a traditional medical school that had a separation between the preclinical and the clinical aspects of medicine. I wanted to go to a place that valued textbooks and lectures, and the place that valued basic principles of science and physiology. I also wanted to go to the best university in the world, which is why I chose Oxford. The reason why I chose over Cambridge in particular actually boiled down to the open day. In the summer of my year 12, when I was 17, I visited both Oxford and Cambridge on their open days, and they were both very beautiful cities and offered pretty similar medical school courses actually. But I found that when I went to Oxford, everything just clicked. I really liked the people, everyone felt very welcoming, very down to earth, and I really didn't get that feeling at all when I went to Cambridge. So that was the final factor really in choosing Oxford. So I talk about this in another video, but actually when it comes to specifically choosing a medical school, I think that rather than focusing on the lecture style or the teaching style, although that is important, I think what's more important is whether you think you could live in that city and you could enjoy your life, and whether you could fit in with those people. And the way to think about that is, if you can, visit the city and visit the open day, or if not, then do what you're doing now and research on YouTube about people's lives in the cities. So now I'm going to talk about academics. So it's no surprise that academics are very important to Oxford and medical school in general. I'll talk about the subjects that I studied, my grades, and my revision methods. I'll start by talking about GCSEs. So for those of you who don't live in the UK, the GCSEs are compulsory national exams that you take when you're 16. So I studied 11 GCSEs, and the subjects that I chose were maths, English language, English literature, biology, chemistry, physics, German, history, geography, Latin, and further maths. The sciences and maths and English are compulsory, and the rest of the subjects I chose myself. I think at this point, having the broadest range of subjects that you can is really good, and it doesn't really help to get too focused in on medicine at this point. So I would just choose subjects that you enjoy. I worked really hard for my GCSEs. I revised a lot. I would say that I revised around 6 to 10 hours a day. On occasion, I worked even more than 10 hours, maybe up to 12. And I don't really recommend doing this actually. I think that I probably worked too hard for my GCSEs in terms of revision, to the point where I ended up getting unwell, probably from the stress of exams. This was driven by obviously an ambition to do well and to get good grades, but also a fear of failure and a fear of not doing well, as these were my first ever board exams. I think in terms of revision, consistency is key. It's better to do a little bit at a time and keep up to date with your studies throughout the space of the year or the 2 years of the course, rather than trying to cram it all in at the end. The way that I managed to revise so long was that I created an Excel spreadsheet and I got to fill in a box to tick every time I finished an hour of studying. And I'm the sort of person who really likes to tick boxes and to put stickers and things like that, so that really motivated me as well. I also tried to revise according to my body clock, so I'm really not a morning person at all. So I actually did most of my studying in the evenings. I found that the most productive time for me was after dinner, between maybe 8:30 and 10:30. I found that my mind was really clear, so I used that time to study. But to be honest, I don't think that you need to study for 10 hours a day when you're 16, but that's something that I did. In terms of grades for my GCSEs, the way that it worked when I did them was that you got a letter grade, where A star was the best, and I guess F was the worst. I think now in England it's changed to numbers, so an A star is equivalent to an 8 or 9. So for my GCSEs, I got 11 A stars, or 9s, as they are known now. Obviously, I was really happy about that, and I think that having those GCSEs actually really helped me for my Oxford application, because it was physical proof of my academic rigour and academic potential. I think I did probably work too hard and I didn't need to, but at that point in my life I think I would have rather have worked harder and regretted working too hard rather than regretted not working hard enough and risked not getting the grades. So then we move on to year 12. Back when I did A levels, you did AS subjects in year 12 and then you did A2 levels in year 13. So most people did 4 subjects in year 12 and then they dropped 1 subject and did 3 A levels when they were in the final year of school, year 13. The subjects that I chose were biology, chemistry, physics and maths. I actually started out choosing 5 subjects with further maths included, but I got to my first further maths class on the first day of school in year 12 and I realised that it was just too much to do 5 subjects. It was turning into a Hermione Granger, Time Turner situation, and I actually just dropped out further maths. I think that was a really great decision because 4 subjects is already a lot. For medicine, chemistry is compulsory, plus another science. It's quite a good idea to do biology. So chemistry and biology plus maths were compulsory in my mind for medicine. My 4th subject was physics, which arguably has less relevance to medicine, or at least medical school applications. But when it came to year 13, my final year of school, I didn't really want to drop any subject, and the only subject that I could have logically dropped was physics. So I decided to keep all 4 subjects for A level. That's not unheard of, but it is relatively rarer when it comes to A levels because most people study 3 rather than 4. But I continued 4 for A level, and I actually also think that helped me with my medical school application to Oxford, because once again it shows that academic rigour and academic potential, and that is something that really highly value, probably above the other really important qualities that make a doctor, such as conscientiousness, empathy, teamwork, a caring nature, that kind of thing. So for year 12 for AS levels, the highest grade you could get was an A, and I got 4 A's in biology, chemistry, physics, and maths. So once again, I was really happy with these grades, and I did revise a lot. But I don't think I ever really hit that 10 hours a day mark again in year 12 or year 13. I don't think I actually needed to do that, because although you go into a lot of depth with your subjects, studying 4 as opposed to studying 11 was a huge difference, and actually I found that I didn't need to be studying 10 hours a day. So another subject that I studied in A levels, so in year 12 and 13, was an EPQ, or an extended project qualification. So essentially this is an extra subject, kind of like an AS level, that you can do on top of your other studies, and it's essentially a dissertation project. I chose to do my EPQ on the applications of 3D printing in medicine and its potential to revolutionize medicine in the future. I think it was a good experience in terms of the challenge of having to write a dissertation at school and getting used to not a morning person at all. So I actually, mine was really the applications. I always tell them that it's really important to be authentic to yourself and to be true to who you are. Studying 4 as opposed to studying 11 was a huge difference, and actually I did project qualification using a reference manager like EndNote or Zotero. But if you'd ask me if I would do that again, probably not, because actually it took a long time and it was just another added stress on top of everything that I had to do, and I don't know how useful it was in terms of strategically for my application. Once I started it, I didn't want to drop out because I don't want to put so many hours into it, so I continued it through and got an A at the end. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is and that might be more suited to you. So in the UK, when you apply to medical school, you can apply to 4 medical schools, and then you have an option to apply to a different university for a different course. So I obviously applied to Oxford as my number 1, but I also applied to Imperial College London, King's College London, and Queen Mary's for medicine. As you can see, apart from Oxford, they were all London universities, and that's because I really love London as a city, and I think it's a really exciting and diverse place to live, and I've always wanted to work there, which is why I chose London universities. Now I'm going to talk about my interview.
Hi everyone.
So I had interviews in Oxford, in Imperial, King's, and Queen Mary's. My Oxford interviews were actually the first interviews I did, so they were in December of year 12, and then in February and March I had my Imperial, King's, and Queen Mary interviews. The way that it works for Oxford Medical School is usually you apply to a specific college, and then you'll be interviewed at that college, and in order for the application process to be fair, you're also pulled to another college. So essentially you get interviewed at 2 different colleges. So I had 2 interviews at the college that I applied to, which was St John's College, and 2 interviews at Queen's. This was before the pandemic, so the interviews were in person, and I stayed overnight in college accommodation at Queen's. So you probably read a lot of horror stories about Oxford interviews in particular, that, for example, where they throw you a ball and they expect you to do something. It wasn't like that for me, although I did see a Rubik's Cube on the desk of my interview at Queen's, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, are they going to ask me a maths question, because I don't think I'll be able to answer it. And it turns out that they did use the Rubik's Cube to ask people questions, but they were doing that for every other candidate. So the person before me had the Rubik's Cube question, so I luckily got off free. I do talk a lot about my interview experience in another video, which I will highlight here, but essentially the interviews in Oxford mimic the way that they teach medicine. So in Oxford they have these sessions called tutorials, usually 1-on-1 or 2-on-1 sessions that are about an hour long, and you meet with a professor and you write an essay, and then you discuss the essay and you discuss academic topics in an intense small group discussion. In these tutorials, the professor will push you quite hard and try to get you to build upon the knowledge that you already have to tackle new things. So essentially an Oxford interview is a mini tutorial, and the interviewers want to see if you are the sort of person who has the potential to be pushed and to do well in that sense. So in my interview they asked me a lot of science questions that got me to think further than the A-level subjects that I had learnt. They also asked me some of the traditional questions that people associate with medicine, but they had their own twist. So for example, instead of asking me, why do you want to study medicine, they asked me, why do you think we should ask the question, why medicine? It's quite difficult to prepare for an Oxford interview, but the way that I did it was to do a lot of reading around and outside of my subject in order to feed my intellectual curiosity. So if you have medical school interviews coming up, then I would advise trying to keep up to date with the healthcare and science news. This could be through listening to podcasts or reading popular science journals and popular healthcare journals. For example, school interviewers love talking about books. Now I'm going to talk about my offers and my grades. So I was lucky to get offers at Oxford, Imperial, and Queen Mary's, and then I was put on the waiting list for King's. For Oxford, my additional offer was A-star AAA, and so I was lucky to get offers at Oxford, Imperial, and Queen Mary's, and then I was put on the waiting list for King's. For Oxford, my additional offer was A-star AAA, and for Imperial my offer was A-star AA, and then for King's my offer was 3 A's. The way it works is that you have to confirm one offer as your first choice, and then you have to give a backup offer. So I obviously put Oxford as my first choice. Although I did want to put Imperial as my second choice, the grade requirement was the same as Oxford, so it wouldn't be very logical to put that as my second choice if I, for example, missed getting an A-star, which is why I put Queen Mary's as my backup offer. I got my offers in around January, February of year 13 of my final year of school, and at that point I then had 3 or 4 months to focus on my A-levels. Up until then, I had spent the majority of my year 12 and year 13 dedicated to honing my medical school application, so that was things like preparing for the entrance exam, preparing for the interviews, reading medical books, doing work experience, doing volunteering, writing lots of reflections and practicing interviews. All of this took a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it meant that I had to put my studies on a back burner. So when it got to January of year 13, where we had our mock exams and we got our grades for our mocks, and at that point I got a D in chemistry, and now chemistry A-level, and I found it to be the most difficult subject that I studied. I simply didn't have enough time to focus on my school subjects, so then I had between January and June, which was exams, to pick up my grades, and I did manage to do that. So I went from a D to an A in chemistry just by focusing on studies. This was the right way around to do things, because I gave everything to my medical school application, which I don't regret because I ended up getting 3 offers, and then I had enough time to slog it and put in the hours for my subjects. The grades that I got in A-level were A-star in biology and A's in maths, chemistry and physics. This is exactly what I needed for Oxford, so I was really happy with the grades. I was predicted to get 4 A-stars in my A-levels, and I didn't end up getting that, but to be honest, I think that would have been impossible to get. I would have had to have focused completely on my A-level subjects and not spent so much time on my medical school application, and therefore I don't regret the way that I did things in
Dr. Matt Williams. I'm a tutor in politics and what is known as the Access Fellow here at Jesus College. College at the University of Oxford, and I'm delighted to be here with Sharif. So, do you mind telling us a bit about yourself?
Yeah. Hi everyone, I'm Sharif Ali, Secretary Medic here at Jesus, and I'm also the Access and Outreach Officer for MedTalk.
So, Sharif, I always like to start interviews by asking people, can you describe Oxford in any 3 words? What would you choose?
Oh, definitely, it's got a lot of history. I like what you've broken the word down there. But history, opulence, and marble.
Oh, nice. Okay. And medicine. So that is a relatively unusual example of a degree which is quite similar across different universities, right? Because at the end of it, you've got to become a doctor, you can work in the NHS, and so the type of qualification you get at, say, University of Southampton is not going to be wildly different to Oxford, right? So therefore, why Oxford?
Why Oxford? Well, that's a really great question. I think the course structure in Oxford really lends itself to helping you be an independent thinker and not have to regurgitate facts, as I would say most of medicine is taught. Especially me now going into my 3rd year, my FHS year, or in the university's intercalation, where I get to choose a project on my own choosing, and I get to pursue topics within the biomedical field that really interest me. And so that's something that really drew me to Oxford.
Right, because Oxford is a centre of research excellence. I mean, all medical schools are, but you're going to be working on something pretty cool. Is that right? Do you mind just describing that?
Yeah, of course. I'm working in the Department of Pharmacology, and I'm helping my supervisor develop a drug to treat catecholaminergic polymorphic ventricular tachycardia. It's a real mouthful, CPVT, and we're targeting random receptor 1s in the heart, so very interesting.
And this is mostly for children, you're explaining?
Yeah, it's mainly a disease that primarily affects children, and so there's not much medications out there that help children with this disease, and so it's great to be able to be a part of something that can help.
Pretty awesome as a 3rd year undergrad.
Yeah, I know. There's honestly such a range, such a breadth of cool science going on. As you said, it's a centre of research excellence here in Oxford, and the fact that you get to access this with, I have very little background in research, and this is probably my first official research assignment, and that I'm able to do something so cool and so groundbreaking is, really exciting.
At some university medical schools, you work with patients earlier on, right? Whereas at Oxford, the clinical side of things is after your first 3 years, is that right? So why would you choose that approach and not seeing patients until this way?
Yeah, I think, and it took a bit of convincing for myself as well, because I always liked the patient-facing side of medicine. But you really have to subscribe fully to the Oxford course and the way they do things here. It's all about building those scientific foundations that I think put us in good stead for when we do face patients eventually. The fact that we're able to work it out from first principles, and that help us develop a suitable treatment plan for the patient, but also helps them understand it a bit better.
Okay, fantastic. And that approach of having 3-year medical sciences and then more clinical focused approach to medicine is quite similar at Cambridge.
Yeah.
So I asked you why not Cambridge?
That's a funny question, because I actually applied to Cambridge first and got rejected.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, well, I took a gap year and
I asked you why not Cambridge?
That's a funny question, because I actually applied to Cambridge first and got rejected.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, well, I took a gap year and reapplied to Oxford.
Right.
But I think, like you said, it's not much really setting them apart from the course structure, because they're both very traditional medical courses, but have a very similar format. But what drew me to Oxford was actually Jesus College itself, and the community here, and the Welsh feel. So I'm originally from Wales.
Oh, right, nice. So the Welsh feel, just for viewers, so this college, Jesus College, was founded originally for Welsh students only. Nowadays we have students from all over the world, you're right, we still proudly link to that Welsh heritage, so yeah, that's really cool. What do you think has surprised you most about Oxford?
What surprised me most about Oxford? Well, actually, you touched on it when you were talking about how there's medical students across the UK that are probably doing very similar things all in the same year, etc. But I think being a medical student at Oxford, you don't feel like a medical student. You don't feel that separation. I think my friends who are medical students at the university feel. I think there's a really integrated approach. A lot of my friends aren't medics. I do have medic friends, but a lot of them are from humanities, languages. So I think what I really appreciate is that I have such a breadth of friendships and people I can speak from different subjects.
So, and as someone who's applied to medical school twice, what top tips would you give someone who's starting on that journey, how they can perform at the medicine?
Yeah, I think at first it's quite demoralising. I think you have to really feel comfortable in getting rejected. I think if you can bounce back from rejection and come back stronger, I think that's probably the biggest and most important quality. Not only does that help you as a medical student, but it'll help you in all walks of life and into your professional career.
Well, isn't that the truth? I'm afraid, yeah, rejection is fun, but not necessarily in a bad way.
Yeah, exactly. They always say rejection is redirection, right?
Nice, absolutely. And for Oxford, we use the UCAT test, which is used by a bunch of medical schools, right? Any tips on that?
Well, I was quite lucky. I say I'm quite lucky because I was able to sit the BMAT to get it. Yeah, just before they changed, and so the UCAT didn't really appeal to my skill set. BMAT was a lot more more suited to me. But I obviously had to sit the UCAT, so tips I would give: give yourself enough time. I think I remember giving myself. Weeks to prepare for UCAT and just practice.
And the interviews are obviously we don't have sort of short form MMI style interviews, they're longer, more academic. Any advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give the run of the mill, and that is be prepared to be wrong. I think they're always trying to look at your thinking process. And don't be afraid to show a bit of your personality as well. Especially for medicine, they're not looking for academic robots, they are looking for someone who has the academic credentials, but also the soft skills that you'll need as a doctor. So don't be afraid to let your personality shine through an interview.
Nice, yeah, pretty good advice. Could you tell us something you don't talk about?
What I don't like about Oxford, I think sometimes the prestige and, Oxford continuously does well in the league tables can sometimes make us rest on our laurels a bit. We can become a bit complacent and maybe not so receptive to feedback that I think, because I'm the second year JCC rep for medicine as well, and sometimes I do feel that it can be a bit more of an open year, per se.
Okay, fair enough. And what do you do when you're not a medical student too? What do you like?
Yeah, I'm currently preparing for summer 8 for the Jesus College book club. That takes up a lot of my time at the moment, and I also like to play badminton, so I'm also the captain of the Jesus badminton team. We just resurrected that this year, and yeah, just socialising, going out with friends.
Right, so just to explain, summer 8 is bumps racing, right? So you have to row into people.
Exactly.
Medicine every year, which means that it's really, really difficult. No matter how good your application is, no matter how strong of an applicant you are, there will be some parts.
Doctors versus lawyers. Who's smarter? Who's more handsome? Who works harder in school? I brought Legal in to carry his side.
Versus lawyer. Winner takes all.
I'll see you in the courtroom.
I'll see you on the operating table.
Lord, which education is harder, med school or law school?
Law school.
What? No.
Because you went to the easier school?
No, because it's shorter.
The problem with law school is that it doesn't actually teach you how to be a lawyer. You learn theories of justice.
Okay.
Imagine if in medical school, on day one, the professor's like, today we're going to tell you about science. It's how a lot of people learn medicine. And then on day two, the professors say, we already talked about science, but how about intelligent design? They'd say that the science people are all wrong. And then on the third day, they say, well, some people disagree with both of those, and they just go with mysticism. That's kind of what law school is like. You don't learn the actual subject, you learn theories around the subject.
Med school, 4 years, 3 to 7 years of post-medical school training. Harder to get into, clinical time, call shifts. I know a lot of legal students that have time off. Med students don't have that luxury.
Funny you say that med students have no time off. You had an Instagram account.
I did.
It was devoted to almost nothing except showing that med students had lots of extra time on their hands.
No, it was you could use your your limited, highly limited. Frankly, I think you're badgering the witness.
What is the best part of school?
It's hard for me to think of something because
you
it's
went to
so
law
much
school,
harder.
it's so much easier. When people's lives are on the line, you gotta really be able to.
Dunking on med students.
You did not in law school?
Now, having practiced for years, dunking on med students.
But he said what's the best part of school? I was gonna say cadaver lab.
So, I think that's right. We only get to read about the cadavers. You guys get to actually work with the cadavers.
Yeah,
That sounds.
I'm glad you used that verb because people usually say play with cadavers, and we don't play with cadavers.
In my head, I was thinking play.
What is the worst part of school?
Can I put 2 things?
I will allow you to put 2 things. I only needed to put 1 thing because I follow directions.
Because it's so easy, you don't have any problem.
Finals.
Oh, true. I was gonna say call shifts or money. I mean, law school's probably just as expensive, right?
Well, less expensive because it's only 3 years.
True. After, when you're a resident, you're making like $10 an hour for 5 years. So like, you're still paying back that debt.
The issue with finals in law school is that almost all of your grade is based on 1 test at the end of the semester.
Oh, that's messed up.
I mean, some schools are different,
Yeah.
and some schools do grade participation, some have midterms, but often the participation might be 10% of your grade, midterm might be 20%, so it's still an overwhelming majority is the final exam.
Where did you go to school?
I probably should erase this because this looks messy.
I'm already done. We do learn to write better. UCLA, baby!
MIT, like MIT, but in New York. No relation. I want to hear about UCLA because that's actually like a world-renowned institution.
It is the greatest public college in the world. I actually went for undergrad and law school, so I'm a double Bruin.
What happens with a double Bruin?
This. You get a nice suit and you have your own YouTube channel. Be a double Bruin.
New York Institute of Technology.
Yeah, so I did a bachelor's and my doctorate degree in a 7-year combined program in the school. And this is where my dad went to med school as well.
How would you describe your professors in school?
I said aggressive.
I said devoted. They were really about their craft. They would be physically upset if someone wasn't learning.
I think my law professors were pretty devoted, definitely cared about students learning, but I think they were very challenging too. So they were willing to get in your face. They were willing to debate, and their passion came out in the classroom.
Really?
Yeah. I do remember getting into a sparring match with my crim law professor. I said something smarmy like, well, isn't that just a semantic difference?
Oh.
And his response was, well, isn't everything a semantic difference? Isn't that why we're here?
How would you describe your peers in school?
That one's easy for me.
I want to say something, but I don't want it to come off bad. Smart.
Smart.
People brought their own lamps to the library.
Ah.
People were down. Chair pads, water bottles that monitored their fluid intake. They were devoted to spending hours in the library.
Certainly, most of my fellow law students were incredibly studious. But apart from the fact that they were just devoted to learning the law, it was still the highest concentration of really smart people that I've ever interacted with.
What is one of your fondest specific memories of school?
Mock trial.
Oh, that's gotta be fun, because you're like half acting and half being serious.
It's super fun. I did mock trial all through undergrad at UCLA, which two-time national champion.
Oh, you were in a serious relationship. Grey's Anatomy, all the shows, they show so much romance, so much love. I've never felt that in a hospital setting. I've always was nervous or worried about learning. I never thought about dating.
I really don't believe you. I'm not saying a relationship, but you had to have thought about it.
I mean, thought about it? In the beginning when it was new?
Me? I had a serious relationship. Before I started law school, and I maintained that relationship through the ups and downs of All 3 years?
Is it true that, like, in med school, for example, a lot of relationships end?
Yes.
And start.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing in law school?
Absolutely. So many people are getting together. I mean, you're spending every waking hour with the people in your law school.
So people hooked up in your law school?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we're just like an antisocial community. Or maybe I just wasn't invited to the parties. They're like,
Yeah.
we don't want this guy.
Some people are ugly ducklings. Someday you might be a swan.
Yeah, I'm looking to spread my wings and fly.
What is one piece of advice you would give to someone starting school today?
I was gonna write don't.
I think people should go to law school if you want to be a lawyer.
As opposed to what?
A lot of people go to law school because they don't know what they want to do when they graduate from.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's good advice.
What's final strategy?
So we talked about how finals are decided using these issue spotting exams. And a lot of people think that the way to write good finals answer is by memorizing as much law as possible.
Okay.
That's actually really not true. You have to know a lot of the law, but you also
Good morning. Today is Thursday the 14th of August and it is results day. I honestly had the worst sleep ever last night. I had a horrible come off, hopefully. I've literally been crying the entire day. And then the rest of the day plan is dependent on how results go. Like, I don't want to... Oh, you haven't reloaded.
Alright, you're coming.
Yeah!
You got it! Take a photo shot of that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh, well done.
I'm gonna cry. She's clever chicken. I got in. UCL has confirmed your place to study medicine for 6 years. All the work paid off. My dad just told me that he's predicted my grades and that he's made them up already. Oh. A star, A star, A. Yeah, that's what I think I'll get as well. That's exactly what I think I'll get. I don't know what mark I got. Exciting. Yeah, I definitely got A star AA. Oh, A star AA. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh, yay. I'm
That's
glad.
amazing.
I'm really, really glad. Oh.
Oh my god.
Oh, A star AA. Yeah. And I got A star AA. Guys, I've literally been crying the entire day, which I know is so stupid because I literally got into my firm uni. Like, I should be so happy, and I definitely am, and I'm so proud that I got A star AA. I was 1 mark off an A star in biology. I got 191, and then the grade boundary for an A star was 192. So I've just sent in paper 1 and paper 3 to get it remarked. So I'm really hoping that goes up. And then